Welcome to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast, the show that offers you tips and strategies to help speakers build the business of their dreams. Now here's your host, 30-year industry veteran and business coach, Jane Atkinson.
Well, welcome everyone to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. I'm super excited to be talking to you today about how to live your life and your business in the front row. Now, some of you may recognize that phrase as the brand of the fabulous Marilyn Sherman. Welcome back to the show, Marilyn.
Thank you, Jane. I'm so happy to be here again.
Front row. Tell everybody, give me a little snapshot of your existing speaking business. You know, you're working with bureaus. What are you doing? How often are you out on the road? And are you happy with things in the way that they're going?
I love speaking so much that I'm never quite happy in terms of the number of bookings.
You always want more.
I always want more bookings because it's such a high. I love what I do. And my business is pretty much 100% keynote speaking. So I don't have a consulting back end. I don't have a coaching back end. I just do keynote speaking. Now, I do have some feelers out with some local casinos here in Las Vegas where I could go deeper with them. And I do have repeat customers quite a bit, but my business is people hire me to get on stage to do events.
Well, as your former coach, I'm like, let's dive into that, shall we? I want to just go down there with you, but that's not what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
We're talking about some of your content. So talk about who do you speak for the most and what is the topic that they are hiring you for?
Well, it's very interesting. I literally just got a booking on Friday from someone who was just searching for an engaging, motivational speaker with content. And that's basically what I am. People say that you're more than a motivational speaker because you have immediate take-home value. You also talk about managing change in disruptive times. And I've been doing that as a workshop for years, especially with my former finance background. Before I became a speaker full-time, I worked in a training department of a finance company, and we were bought out by a bigger bank. And so I was part of the transition team. So I was very well versed in managing change with a positive mindset. And so that was sort of on the back burner as just an offering on my website. But you'd be surprised at how many people find that because they're looking for, how do we manage change through disruptive times? How do we get our people engaged and on board after so much they've been through?
Yeah.
So my motivational speaking has some depth to it with what they can do to re-engage, reignite their employees and their workforce and to get more out of their workforce, especially since so many people have been taking a back seat after, post-COVID. They're sort of sitting back and thinking, is this really where I want to work? Is this really where I want to spend my time and energy? So my job is to come in and remind them that, yes, you can do more and have more with what you have. And so my message about living your life in the front row and front row success, how top performers don't settle for balcony seats. Since the last time you and I engaged, I actually have an acronym, the Seat of Success, which makes sense because your success depends on where you sit and who you sit with.
Yes.
So the S stands for to see the outcome you desire. It all starts with your vision. Where do you see yourself?
Yes.
And for the wealthy speakers out there, where do you see your speaking career? And I love how you always start every event with closing your eyes and imagining, the private plane, the full fee deposit, the spin-off after you get off stage.
Private plane. That's yours, Marilyn. That's your imagination.
I'm positively projecting that, Jay.
I love it. Okay. So see the outcome
which is the S. The E is to manage your energy. It's not about managing your time. It's about managing your energy. So don't get sucked up with your high energy time of the day doing things that are not going to have a high return on your investment of your energy. And it's so easy to get caught up with going down, for example, social media, going down a rabbit hole, and suddenly your whole morning is wasted because you didn't protect your energy.
Yes.
So So that's the E in the seed of success. The A is all about attitude, and you can't be a great motivational speaker without talking about the power of attitude.
Yes.
And when you have a front row attitude, when you have a can-do attitude, when you have a resourceful attitude where you're coming to be a resource to other people and being of service, that is going to bring you more joy and, more fulfillment. So it's all about attitude.
Okay.
And then the T in the seed of success stands for tenacity. You have to have your tenacity at max capacity when handling adversity, because your path to the front row is never an easy path. There's always going to be roadblocks and potholes along the way. So you have to have your tenacity prepared. You have to go for it. You have to pick yourself up. You have to find another path. You have to don't allow these setbacks and roadblocks to keep you back in the balcony of your life.
That is so good. And I just want to say that there was a time when I think motivational speaker didn't have as good of a rap as, but I think things go in cycles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think motivational speaking is absolutely 100% needed out there. And I just want to bring up the idea. You probably knew Keith Harrell quite well.
Oh, yeah.
Keith Harrell was somebody that I followed and thought highly of. He made an entire business off of one word, which was attitude, like built a 7-figure speaking business off of attitude. I don't see that as anything that's going away. No. You can wrap it up in mindset or whatever you want to do, but really attitude and motivational speaking, I don't think will ever go away, because it's so needed out there, especially for people who have been through the mill of disruption. They're sitting in the balcony, they've got their feet up, they're probably eating popcorn, and they're thinking, yeah, I'm here, but I'm not really here, right? They're quiet quitting. And so I think this is really so needed right now. Okay, so let's apply the idea of front row living to the speaking profession. What does that look like? Does it come down to like decisions that you're making in your life? What do you think front row living is really all about, or front row success?
Well, the foundation obviously is you get to decide. Nobody else can decide it for you. You get to decide what your front row looks like. For me, getting on stages, and I love traveling. I know a lot of speakers that are my age are saying, I'm so done with traveling. I'm so tired of it. I'm ready to just
one of them, by the way. I only just broke out of my COVID bubble like a couple of months ago, and I was kind of forced out. So I would have stayed here for another few years quite gladly. I've recognized what my choices are now. And they're very, very different from yours, Marilyn. I see you tripping off to Paris all the time. And I think there she is. She's doing her version of front row living.
Exactly. So you start with, you get to decide, and you get to literally paint the picture for what you want your front row to look like. So that's where it starts. And then it's about taking action. And the thing that trips up a lot of speakers, and I'm speaking from my own experience, what tripped me up in the past is such a mindset of, why is this person getting more bookings than me, and what is wrong with me, and what am I doing wrong? And it's not about doing anything wrong. It's about, what are you doing on a consistent basis to move your business forward? What are you doing about writing those blogs? And so, every Friday I do a Front Row Friday video and I post it on YouTube. In fact, I just had a great dinner with Mike Staver last night, who's the chair of NSA. And he was like, I love your Front Row Friday videos. But I'm like, yeah, they're every week. So how much planning do you think goes into these Front Row Friday videos? And he's like, none. And that's right. They're so current that every Wednesday I decide, well, what do I want to talk about today? And the feedback that I get from those Front Row Friday videos is that you're so authentic. It's like, that's because I'm not reading anything. And so, and you never know when you're putting out your material. Like I've been doing this going on 2 years now. When you're putting out material out into the world, you never know who is reading your blog, who is listening to your podcast, who is watching your videos. You never know the impact that you are making. But as long as you are consistently putting your material out there and taking action and moving forward, it's going to come back to you. So your front row mindset as a speaker is let go of all the chatter in your head that you're not good enough, you don't deserve a front row seat, and you compare yourself to other speakers. You have to stop that noise in your head that keeps you in the balcony of your life. And then be careful of getting comfortable, which is general admission. When you are comfortable and in your comfort zone and you're just sort of coasting along, when you coast backwards. You never coast forward. So be careful of getting too comfortable, which is why I always like to evolve my presentation. And even though the foundation is the same, because my clients, you know, from 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, they're rehiring me again.
Yes.
And I'm still talking about front row, but I've evolved the message. I have new stories. They're more current. They're more relevant today than ever before.
Yeah, you have a new acronym to remind them of the ideas. And so, yeah, you don't rest on your laurels, because that's going to take you backwards.
Right.
And general admission, who knows where you're going to end up.
Right.
So lots of decisions go into being intentional. Intentional is always going to be my word for the year, I think. Being intentional about that. I think it's interesting that you brought up the whole you never know who's going to be watching idea when you're putting out content into the world. I just did a podcast with another speaker who said that they hire, hang on, I want to give him props, so I'm going to tell you his name, Sean Canugo. He hires a videographer in every city he goes to. He spends, I don't know, $300, $500 up to $1,000. And he puts pieces of his presentation out as a part of his consistent messaging. And I thought, oh, that's a new one. So watch out, people, podcast listeners, for Sean Canugo, whose message will be coming up in the next little bit. I don't know which one will run first or second. But anyway, I think consistent action and mindset are really, I mean, we talk about that over here. That's really what front row living is all about, but deciding what it is that you want. So was there ever a decision for you that, you know what, I want to be on the big stage. I want to be in front of X type of an audience. I mean, you've gone really deep into, we've talked before about this, food service professionals, women. Talk a little bit about that. Did you attend an event and say, ooh, you know, I see what's going on here and I want to be a part of it?
No. And so this sort of relates to your earlier question about who do I speak to? My message is so non-specific in an industry that I had like 7 engagements in 10 days one time. And I looked back and it was hilarious, because one was a group of engineers, one was a group of corporate attorneys, one was a group of leaders from Girl Scouts of America. I mean, they couldn't be more different. And every single one of them, and it became comical after the third one, someone came up to me at my book signing and said, oh my gosh, you were speaking directly to me. It's like you were one of us. And it was funny because I'm not an engineer, I'm not a Girl Scout leader, and I'm certainly not a corporate attorney, but my message resonates with the individuals in the room. So it doesn't matter what their role is. And then when I do my pre-calls, I can find out what their pain points are and I can customize my message. But I am all over the place, but I do a lot in the food service space, and it became big for me because I spoke at one event, and that one event, they resonated with it so much that they couldn't stop talking about it after that first night of the conference. And I was speaking again the next day, and my 450 place room had 700 people in it just because of the word of mouth. And then they hired me back again the next year, and then they hired me back again. I mean, I spoke there for 12 years in a row, and the 13th year they didn't hire me to speak at the conference, but they hired me for a 12 city tour. So So it was the same message that I speak to engineers and corporate attorneys. But the food service space, they love it. And so they found me, and because the audience had decision makers in it from very large brands that you and I know, they would hire me for their events that they had at their corporate headquarters. So, and that led to franchisee conventions. And so, yeah. Sometimes your niche finds you instead of you finding your niche.
I'm just getting ready to write about that actually in a blog. I just spoke to somebody who wanted to talk to me about potentially coaching them. It wasn't a good fit. And part of the reason why it wasn't a good fit was she had a lot of statements like, well, I know that clients aren't going to hire me back until 3 or 4 years later, so I'm not going to bother marketing to them. And I thought about you in the moment, and I thought, should I argue with her? But we'd already had a lot of statements like that in the conversation. I just thought, no, you're just not a good fit. Bye. Anyway, bye-bye. That is a front row decision.
Yeah.
Wrong fit clients.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you've had conversation with clients who wanted you to do something way off your norm, didn't have any money, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like, what about wrong fit clients how do you get to the front row by continuing to accept wrong fit?
Oh yeah, no, I would not take something that I'm not a good fit for. I mean, if they want someone to talk about future trends in the market, that's so not me. If you want to talk about economics, that's so not me. I mean, that's not what I do. And I even had someone say, we want you for a luncheon as a humor speaker. And this was back in the day. And they said, it's between you and Jeannie Robertson. And I remember calling up my friend Fripp. She's such a good friend and she's so honest. I said, I can't believe I'm up for luncheon and Jeannie Robertson is the other candidate for this job. And she said, Marilyn, if they're looking at Jeannie Robertson, you're not a good fit.
Yeah.
And it hit me. It's like, she's absolutely right. I am not a humorous luncheon keynote speaker.
The client,
although I am very funny, but I don't advertise that.
Yeah. And I think that's the client maybe getting clarity around, well, when you say you're looking for someone who's funny or humorous, tell me more. What does that look like to you? And digging into it. It could be that they just want people to laugh a little bit. Right. Well, that is you, right?
Right.
But when you're comparing me with a comedian, someone who that's what they do. And by the way, Jeannie Robertson, we bow to her. And all right.
But Jane,
her ripples are continuing.
Yeah. But here's the thing. In this day and age, with so much content on the internet, by the time people call me and fill out my form on my website, they have already seen a ton of my videos.
Yes.
So they know what they're going to get.
They know what type.
By the time they call me, there's no surprise. So I rarely have someone that's going to call me for something that I do not do. Buyers are savvy. Buyers are savvy. They are going online. They're looking at your YouTube channel. They're looking at your website. They're watching your videos. They don't have time to call up all these speakers and have a conversation. They do all their homework before they reach out to you.
Yeah. So watch your social media footprint as a side note from that. But also don't bury your humor thinking I don't want to give this away online because of a fear-based decision. I think you put your humor out there so that people can see how good you are. Yeah. I remember there was a piece of Vince's presentation that I thought was really like people might be turned off by it. Vince Pacenti.
I love Vince.
He gets up on the chair and he
love that.
The sport of speed skiing.
Yeah.
And when I way, this is like historic 20 years ago type thing. I was worried that if we put it at the front of the video that people would be like, oh, that guy's too crazy for us. And they wouldn't hire him. When in fact, the moment we moved it to the front, his bookings exploded. Yeah. So also don't be afraid to put that out on social media, because that's what people, like you just said, They're reviewing your social footprint and they are seeing whether or not you are a good fit for them. And you're going to have a ton of a trail leading to you, Marilyn. I think that's really wonderful.
Can I tell you a story that sort of ties all this together?
Sure.
So my husband, as you know, is French, and his best friend runs a economic summit every year in Provence, and we're invited as his invited guests. Now, I've known his best friend for 18, 19 years. He never knew what I really did for a living, because in France, it's a very different model for speakers. Until he came to visit my husband last year, and we sat in the living room, and he literally watched a full keynote, and his jaw dropped. He had no idea that this is what I do. He's like, "You're a comedian, you are a show, you are engaging, and you did a whole hour and you never looked at notes. I don't understand how you did that." So anyway, when we were invited to the economic summit just this past June, he said, "Okay, now I can introduce you to people as a potential speaker for their events," because the speakers or the people that come to the summit, they're heads of state, they're heads of the largest companies in France, they are significant diplomats from other countries. And so this year we did something very different, very intentional. I did a 1-minute introduction in French on a video, inviting them to watch my demo, telling them that I want to expand my business into Europe, specifically France, and I would do it in English because my French, one day I can do it in French, but right now my events would be in English. So I invited them to watch this video. I had a business card made with the QR code of that video. He and I went through the entire list of people that I should meet in person. We came up with 25 people. He said they will be speaking at different panels. As soon as they're off stage, you go up to them, shake their hand, drop my name, and invite them to engage with you. And what's so very funny, Jane, is because I was so outside of my comfort zone. I'm like, this is easy in the States. All of a sudden I'm in Europe, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And all the insecurities came back.
Barriers, there's all the things,
all
right?
those things, but I did it, and I kept, putting my hand out and meeting people. And there was one woman I met in particular. She's the president of the largest women's university in the world in Saudi Arabia.
Whoa.
And I sat in the front row because that's where life is lived. And so when it came to Q&A, they saw my hand right away. And I asked her a very specific question about, wow, to be the president of a university in Saudi Arabia, what gave you the courage to be who you are today? There must have been a turning point in your life. And she loved the question, answered the question, and then we had a conversation afterwards. And then I immediately followed up with an email to all the people that I connected with at the summit. And I didn't hear from her. And I thought, oh, that's too bad, because I thought we had a connection. Well, so I did a follow-up email, and she emailed me immediately. So this was like 30 days later. And she said, oh my gosh, Marilyn, I sent you an email that night I met you, and it was been in my draft because I went to Cannes on a boat and we didn't have internet on the boat. So, I want you to know, I did watch your videos, and I want to invite you to Saudi Arabia to come and speak to our students. So my mindset could have been, oh, nobody likes me, I think I'm going to eat some worms, kind of a deal. But that's not always the case.
That's a little kid's thing, by the way.
Yes.
Nobody likes me. Everybody hates
me.
I'm going to eat some worms. My husband and I say that to each other all the time. It's funny.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
So now I have an invitation on, we're working out the details, but I'm going there January 3rd. Amazing. And she wants to take care of me while I'm there, because it's a long way to go just for, a single event. So we're working out details of what my stay there is going to look like. So all of that happened as a result of letting people know what I do, being confident in what I do, and then being intentional by going to an event and making myself known without being obnoxious about it, being of service, asking people about them, and not being, oh, it's all about me. And then having a real footprint, like you said, social media, where she literally said, okay, who is this woman? And saw all these videos and connected with me, and then followed up.
It starts with a decision. You decide what it is that you want to speak more in overseas. And then there's a series of actions.
Mhm.
And you don't stop taking action when somebody doesn't email you back right away.
Right.
You double check, hey, reach out one more time.
Yep.
Don't make up in your mind what's going on at their end, because you don't know.
Yes.
You don't know there's a draft in her folder and that she's sailing the beautiful waters in Cannes. You don't know what's going on with her. So don't assume that you do know.
Yeah. And you know what's even funnier, Jane? I mean, I don't know about you, but don't you have every once in a while that little insecure voice, in your head? So we had a Zoom call, and I even asked Eve, I said, how do I bring it up that, I want to come to Saudi Arabia? How do I approach that when we're just having a get to know you conversation? Well, I showed up on the Zoom call, and the first thing she said was, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you. I can't wait to invite you to come to Saudi Arabia. So let's make that happen.
That's
nice. So
nice.
you just never know. So you are absolutely right. Don't make up the decision of your customer or prospect for them in your own mind.
Before you know. And the tip, I think, going into that phone call is just be curious.
Yes.
See where the call, is there any opportunity? If it hasn't come up in the first little bit, is there any opportunity for me to come there?
Yeah.
I would love to do that. And I think that you show up curious to a lot of your calls. Let's talk about front row living. I just went to see the Beyonce movie on Saturday. I wanted to go on Saturday. I want it to go. And sometimes you want what you want because you want it. And so I don't sit in front row at the movie theater. I'm assuming that you don't expect people to do that. But I chose the best seat that I deemed in the house. And I thought about getting other people involved. But I used to go to the movie theater by myself in Dallas all the time. And I loved it. And I thought, if I get somebody else involved, it's going to not be that day. It's going to be not that time. I'm going to have to adjust. And I want what I want because I want it. So I made a front row decision, and I said, I just booked this ticket and I'm going. And it was so, I mean, to then see that act amazing and, mind blowing, and to see her making, and she said at the end of the movie, at this point in my career, I don't have anything left to prove. What a great statement.
Yeah.
And it's so true for her, but it's also true for you, Marilyn. It's true for me. Yeah. At this point in our business, we don't have anything left to prove.
No. I felt like that when you were there, when I got my CPAE induction into the Hall of Fame. And the fun part is no one knows it ahead of time until they announce it from the stage. And but I knew it. And I walked around that convention with a whole different walk and a whole different mindset. It was so relaxing. It's like, I don't have anything to prove. I don't have anything to prove to anyone. I don't have to be a certain way or act a certain way or to talk about my business at all. I got nothing to prove. And what freedom that is.
And isn't there something about front row that says that too?
Yes.
That, let's be clear that front row isn't about like scavenging your way there.
Oh, no.
Talk about what it means. When you're talking to your audiences about making decisions that put them in the front row rather than the balcony, I see it so clearly for you where people are in cultures that are disrupted and, it's so easy for them to sit up in the balcony and coast, right?
Yeah.
What does it mean to have a front row attitude in that setting?
Well, that's a very good question, because as I said earlier, your success depends on where you sit and who you sit with. And some people need to be loved from the balcony, but your front row, by the way, is high rent district. Do not allow people that don't honor and respect you to take up space in your front row. But in a work setting, sometimes you are put on a team of people that you did not choose. You have to work with people that you wouldn't have thought to work with. You may have assumptions about people that you have to collaborate with, and it could prevent you from actually having success with that group because of a assumption you are making about that person. And one of my examples I say very early on in my keynote is where I blew it, and it has to do with you, Miss Jane. And it happened when I went to Toronto and went to your, what do you call it?
Like a live event.
It's a live event. And of course, I come early and sit in the front row. And then day 2, I had left my stuff in the front row so I could reserve my seat, but everybody moved around. And I noticed there was a guy already sitting next to me, and it was like the oldest guy in the room. I'm like, oh no, I don't want to sit with the old guy. I want to sit with the young, cool kids. So I made an assumption about him. And then I thought, Marilyn, let go of your ego, go and be of service. So I sat down next to him. I introduced myself, and he did say he was new to the speaking industry. So then my ego went the other direction, where I said, hey, listen, if you have any questions at all, you can call me. I mean, I've been in this business a long time. I've seen it all. So here's my card. Call me. I mean, I literally just went from one massive ego to another side of my massive ego. And then, as you know, he did a showcase at the end of day 2, and my mouth hit the floor. He was the most fascinating person in the room, probably one of the top 5 most fascinating people I've ever met in my life. And it was Dr. Ken Saylor. And I mean, I blew it, because not only was he, as an intern, working in an emergency room when there was a big parade out, and he couldn't be at the parade because he had to work. And it was at Parkland Hospital. And he was the intern working the emergency room when President JFK was assassinated. And he literally was in the room with Jackie as she is sitting there with her husband. And it was so fascinating. And I spent the whole day sitting next to this fascinating man. And I had no idea, because I did not ask him a single question about who he was, what was he interested in, where does he see it? Nothing. So I tell people, don't blow it. You will be in situations with people that you did not choose. Come from a place of curiosity. Come from a place of, tell me more. Tell me your story. I'm curious. Tell me more. I'm interested in your path, at how you got here. And when you're genuinely curious, as opposed to being, well, how'd you get here, which is a very different, attitude, you will find fascinating things about people. And it's amazing what you can accomplish with people, because you know them better, because you came from a place of curiosity. That was a huge lesson. So thank you, Jane, for inviting him to come to your event.
You're welcome. Dr. Ken Saylor actually passed away in the last few years. And I was so upset, because I saw a preview of some sort of special, either it's a documentary on one of the streamings or something, about all of the doctors coming together who were in the emergency room when JFK came in that day. And I was so upset. I'm like, oh no, he passed away. He's not going to be. And there he is on the screen. They interviewed him for this special. I was so happy that he, they had got in the interview with him before he passed away. So anyway, that's a little side road. You never know who is going to be a part of your front row experience.
Never know. And you could create a front row experience if you let go of judgment of people.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Let go of your judgments. Now, I do want to talk, what's the saying about the 5 or 6 people that you hang around with?
You're the average of the 5 people you hang around with the most. I think that is Jim Rohn's quote. Yeah.
I always think about my crew up at the cottage and how they're all very much happy hour people. And I think, I don't know if this is doing me any favors, because none of them even know what I do for a living. I mean, literally nobody knows what I do for a living. And so, because it just doesn't come up. Doesn't come up. Anyway, so think about that. Who are you spending your time with? And are you intentionally surrounding yourself with front row people, general admission people, balcony people, I mean, who is it that's in your life? How is that an intentional thing for you?
Absolutely. I mean, when I was younger, I thought it was important that everybody liked me. And there's some people that don't like me just because I remind them of their third grade teacher. You know what?
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay that they don't like me, because
Yeah.
I don't need them to like me. I am secure
That's
in my
true.
own skin. I have nothing to prove to people. So I don't have to run around and try to get everybody's attention. I mean, I can. In fact, my husband reminds me, Marilyn, you are a baroness. People come to you. You don't need to go to them. It's a good reminder. So, because I used to get up and rush to people and like, oh my gosh, can I have a selfie? And can I take your picture? And it's like, oh my gosh, those days, thank God, those days are over. I don't need to do that. So I think intentionally, as a result, I'm much more calm. I'm not in such a hurry. I don't talk so much. I listen more.
Mm,
And I see that in new speakers now, or newer speakers.
yeah.
When I ask them a question, they go on and on and on and on, and they start telling me stories that are so uninteresting. I'm like, we've lost the whole conversation, and
Right.
so much so that there's no follow-up question, and there's no interest in a follow-up question. So I
You
think
know
the
what?
older I get, the wiser I get, and the
Uh,
quieter I get.
that new speaker thing is that they're in a hurry.
Yeah.
All they can see is, I must connect with all of these people because I'm in a hurry. And I have a list of my perfect clients. Sitting in the front row means that you are crystal clear on who your perfect client is and who your perfect client is not. Anybody with a negative attitude, thank you, next.
Mhm.
The last piece on my perfect client list is, has a combination of hunger and patience,
Mm.
because I feel like you need both.
Yeah.
You need to have the hunger to take the action, but you also need to have some level of patience in the process. I have clients who think, oh, I'm going to make it happen in less than 3 years, and it takes them 3 years to really get their business up and launched to the degree that they're quite happy with it.
Well,
Hunger and patience.
that is excellent. And to add to that, the focus shouldn't be on the outcome. The focus should be on the process. So if you just know that these are the things you consistently have to do every day to build your business,
Mm,
just like health, if you do everything every day to either, have movement in your life and drink a lot of water and eat the right foods, you're letting go of the specific number on the scale, for example. And if
mm,
you detach yourself from the specific number and just focus on your processes, then you will be less disappointed when it doesn't happen as quickly as you want it to. You have to
mm.
trust the process.
I love the term fueling your body. Like, think
Mm.
of it like, you're driving an amazing race car and you're fueling it. What are
Right,
you putting in there? Are you
right,
putting garbage in?
right.
And I've watched you on your health journey transform. Congratulations. I know you've had amazing success in that regard.
Yeah,
So
that's not easy.
no, it's a lot of work,
Yeah,
right?
it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of reflection. Like, why would I eat really healthy on the way to a keynote and then binge on the way home? What does that mean? So
Interesting.
there's like a connection with receiving love and receiving, attention, and then being able to sit with it and accept it and feel it, as opposed to, no, that can't be real, and then
It's a
stuff it down.
it's a reward thing. I reward myself for a job well done with food sometimes. That's interesting that you said that. And I've been very aware of, my mom's in the hospital, my family's in distress. I'm eating pizza.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like a reward for what I'm going through. And I think that front row living means that you have an awareness for all of those things in your
Mhm.
life,
Yep.
and that you're putting yourself first
Yeah.
is a part of that. We cannot give from a well that is dry,
Right.
and we definitely can't give from a well that is continually being sabotaged by adding crap to it.
Yes.
So I think that's interesting. And I love the idea of really like exploring what makes you do the things that you do.
Yeah, and choosing the people that you want in your life. There's a meeting planner that every time I have lunch with her, I feel worse about myself than I did before the lunch.
Oh, no.
It's a weird thing. I mean, she constantly talks about herself and and she's not aware of how she takes over the conversation. She is not aware about how she puts people down. And so I just stopped going out to lunch with her. We have a texting relationship now. So, so we have to protect, like I said, protect our energy. That includes surrounding ourselves with front row people and not balcony people, because you notice whenever you decide to like show up sort of halfway and you decide to sit in the balcony so you can leave and come back and no one would know. Well, guess what? You're surrounded by other people with that same kind of disengaged mindset. So why would you put yourself in the presence of other people like that?
Yes.
An executive in the food service space, she told me nothing good happens in the balcony. Always go to the front row because that's where other front row people are.
It's so good. I mean, even if you're just attending a conference, and I actually had a guy who was a coach to me, kind of like a psychic-y guy, say, I have never seen anyone trying so hard to make themselves invisible in a room. And that was my old me. That was probably 20 plus years ago me, where I would just be, I'm here, but I'm kind of way back here, just looking on to see what's going on. And I can dash out at any moment if I want to.
Yep.
Oh, and I have definitely I could definitely cop to having done that at conventions where I don't really want to commit to this topic. So I'm just going to come in and sit in the back row and then I can leave if I want to. Just do it. If you're going to go. If you want the topic, then go. Commit to it. Go and sit in the front row. Be there. Be ready for the unexpected thing. Maybe you're meant to be there because there's somebody who's really cool that's sitting next to you.
Yep.
Another
be
front
open.
row person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this might we'll try to put this out right before as a big NSA convention or something, so that people are inspired to go and sit in the front row. Okay, final thoughts before, if people want to get in touch with you, Marilyn, what's the best way?
Well, MarilynSherman.com. Marilyn, like Marilyn Monroe. Young people think Maryland is the state of Maryland, but it's not. It's Maryland, like Marilyn Monroe, and Sherman, like the tank. And I have a YouTube channel. So if you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, just search Marilyn Sherman, because I do a free Front Row Friday video every Friday. So
nice.
So that's the best way to get a hold of me.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom yet again. I always love hanging out with you, Marilyn. We always have some interesting things to talk about, and I'm sure our listeners have gobbled up some of those and will take them to heart.
I hope so. And let me just say how honored I was to write the foreword to your book, The Wealthy Speaker 3.0.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a real honor, because you know a lot of really cool, amazing speakers. And the day you asked me to write the foreword to your latest book was really, really an honor. So I just want to publicly thank you for allowing me to write the foreword.
I was absolutely thrilled that you agreed, and I absolutely loved what you wrote. So thank you for doing that for me. And absolutely, we have a little fan club here between us, and I love it.
Mutual Adulation Society.
Exactly. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening in, and we'll put some things in the show notes of things that we've talked about, as well as how to connect with Marilyn and subscribe to her YouTube channel. And with that, we're going to say, come on and join us here in the Wealthy Speaker School and live in the front row. Come on and check out what we're doing in the private coaching and live in the front row. I look forward to seeing you. And with that, we'll say, see you soon, Wealthy Speakers. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. If you need help building the speaking business of your dreams, head over to wealthyspeakerschool.com and take advantage of our 20-minute next step call. Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast.